Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining our December onX Hunt 101 Masterclass. This will be the last one of these for the year. Crazy to say. We'll get going in just a minute or so here. We want to let everybody have enough time to get logged in and situated. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Your audio and video are turned off, so no worries you have noise in the background. We can't see or hear you. If you do have questions, please use the Q&A feature. Should be down below on the bottom of your screen. I guess it depends on what type of device you're on. It's either going to be on the bottom or the top. Use that for questions. Questions that get put in the chat box will not be answered. There's just not a way for us to answer those in an efficient manner. That's why the Q&A box is there. So if you do have a question, utilize that. We got a member of our customer support team in the background. He'll answer as many of those as he's able to. This class is being recorded. So if there's a portion you want to go back and rewatch, or if you have to dip out early, we will send you an email tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, actually. It'll come about this time with a link to the YouTube video so that you can just open up that link, watch it on YouTube when it's more convenient for you. So with that, I want to start this class off with a couple of our most frequently asked questions. Just want to try to head those off so that we can get those out of the way right away because they come up in pretty much every class. So the first most frequently asked question we get in these is how often does onX update property ownership data, the parcel lines and names? And the answer is it depends on your county, but typically every county or county equivalent, I didn't forget about you boroughs in Alaska and you parishes in Louisiana, they get updated at least once a year. Some are more frequent than that. It depends on how often the county updates their data and how often they make an updated data set available to companies like onX. So in some states like Montana, I think we're on closer to a monthly cadence just because Montana has kind of a robust system for aggregating that data and getting it out there. Some other states, it's closer to once a year. It just all depends on how often that data is updated at the county tax assessor's office. Second most common question we get is how accurate are the property boundaries? Generally, in most cases, they're going to be within 5 to 10 feet. Again, this depends on county data. When we pull data in from the county, from the tax assessor's office, they'll usually tell us there's a margin for error on this. Some counties will say it could be 50 feet. Some counties will say it's 15 feet. Again, it all depends on the county, but generally 5 to 10 feet. It's not survey grade. No GPS mapping app is survey grade. Meant to be a reference. It'll get you close, is what we say. So if you're, hunting right along a property boundary and you see a fence and a no trespassing sign, but it looks like it might be off a little bit, just use the common sense and, abide by the posted signs and things like that. So we'll get you close. If you're in a dispute over your neighbor who built a fence too close to a boundary or onto yours, that's when you're going to want a professional survey crew. All right, with those FAQs out of the way, let's talk about the agenda for the rest of the night. So we're going to go over the different membership options available to you within the onX Hunt app. Then we'll go over to the app. I will demo it here. I have an iPad along with me, so I'll pull that up here in a minute. We're going to go over the map layers, which are really kind of the heart and soul of the onX Hunt system. We'll talk about using onX when you're offline without service, some of our different map tools like waypoints and the tracker. We'll talk about some of the different functions within the location button, including compass mode. Then we'll pop over to the onX web map on my computer here, and I'll show you some of our different base map and imagery options. We'll do a quick tutorial on how to perform a search. We often get asked how to search for coordinates. I'll demo that. And then if there's time at the end, if there's any questions that our customer support team wasn't able to answer in the background, we'll try to tackle as many of those as possible. So first things first, membership options. We really have kind of three different levels or three different tiers of membership at onX. The first and most basic one is a basic membership. So a basic membership means you haven't paid for a membership to onX, for lack of a better term. It's free access to the app. It doesn't get you a whole lot, to be frank. It gets you access to view the map, to view the imagery, to see your location, but you're not able to access any of the mapping tools, the offline maps, the layers or anything like that. So it's a pretty basic map. The way you would get into having a basic membership is if you started a trial and it expired and you didn't purchase a membership, you would revert to basic status. Or if you had a paid membership and you let it expire, or it was going to renew and your card on file was expired or something like that, then you get bumped back to that basic membership. Our paid memberships, we have a premium tier and an elite tier. So premium gets you access to either one state or two state for your layers. So there's a premium one state membership and a premium two state membership. Gets you access to offline maps. You can utilize mapping tools like waypoints and area shapes and tracker. You can access the weather information, a lot of the tools that I'll demonstrate later today. And then, of course, as far as your layers go, there's some nationwide layers that everybody gets access to. But as far as parcel data, government lands, private lands, state-specific layers, with the premium one state, you get one state. Premium two state, you get two states. Our full spectrum membership is our elite membership. Now, our elite membership gets you access to the whole kit and caboodle. You get access to some mapping tools and some imagery and base map options that aren't available to premium members. I'll demo that in a little bit. Gets you access to layers, the private lands and government lands for all 50 states plus Canada. Also gets you access to some of our elite benefits. So if you're an elite member right now, you probably got a notification that we did an exclusive knife offer with Montana Knife Company tonight. If you're an elite member, you get access to some of those cool drops with some of our partners that we work with. You also get access to educational tools like the Hunt and Fool. We're coming up, well, we're already in the thick of application season for the Western states for big game tags. So you have access to a Hunt and Fool digital membership, our Hunt Research Tools, which is our draw odds calculator, so that you can plug in all your points and see what your odds are of drawing XYZ tag in Montana, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, what have you. We also have some discounts on partner brands, companies like Moultrie, Exo Mountain Gear, Schnee's, Final Rise, Lacrosse Boots, Tethered. So I don't mean to make this like a big sales pitch, but if you're an elite member or if you're thinking about it, check out those elite benefits. There might be some gear in there you're already thinking about buying. You can get a pretty cool discount on a lot of those brands and save yourself some money. Some of those discounts are worth more than the elite membership itself. So you could be money ahead by checking that out. So with that, I am going to flip over to my tablet here and pull up the onX app over there. If you are able to, while you're watching, I highly recommend, if you're watching me on a computer, if you can pull up your phone or pull up a tablet and follow along, that's a great way to learn to do kind of as I am doing it along with me. Let's try this one more time. There we go. And there is a little bit of a lag here. There's not really anything I can do about it, unfortunately. So I will try to go slow enough so that there's not too much of a time difference between what I'm saying and what's happening on your screen there. So here's the onX Hunt app. I'm on an iPad here, so things might look just slightly different. If you're on a phone, you'll notice that toolbar along the bottom is a little bit different. It's just because of the big screen of the tablet. Things kind of shift over a little bit there, but otherwise, everything else should work exactly the same. When you log in, you should see something similar to this. The map should pull up to your location, and you should see if you have a paid membership, you'll see some of those layers I talked about earlier showing on your map. As I zoom in a little bit, my blue dot there is my location in the middle of Missoula. And as I zoom in, that's when I start to see these private properties starting to show up. So I can see those orange boundaries with the white and black names in the middle of it. Those are the private parcels. If you're not seeing that data on your map and you have a paid membership, go into your map layers. That's in the lower left-hand corner. There's a button that says Hunt Map Layers. You tap on that. That'll pull up this menu. And again, I'm on a tablet, so it's going to look slightly different. Just on yours, this will cover up more of the screen. If I expand that menu, I can see a bunch of different folders, or some people call them collections. Those are those gray boxes: Montana, current conditions, land and access, etc. So your layers are all grouped into these different folders or collections. Right now, the only state I have turned on is Montana. I can tap on it, and that will show me all of the layers available to me for the state of Montana. I've got private lands, government lands, hunting districts, and block management turned on. If I turn these off, I'm just going to turn off the private lands and government lands. As I zoom out, you see my map is quite a bit different. It doesn't have as much information. It's because I turned those layers off. I can turn them back on. You see the map starts to fill in again. So that's one tip I have. That's something we hear from customers fairly often is I'm missing some data on my map. I don't know how to turn it on or what's going on. 9 times out of 10, if they're not seeing private lands or government lands, those layers just got turned off. So if you ever are not seeing something you think you should, go into your layers. And if you're ever seeing something on your map that doesn't look right, a weird coloration, some kind of filter that's over the top, more than most likely, it's a layer that got turned on. Your first thing you should do, open up your map layers and see what layers you have turned on and off. I'm going to close out of this for a moment and zoom in again. Another big tip I have tonight is if you're ever wondering what something on the map is, or if you're looking for more information about something, the best thing to do is to tap on it. So I'm sitting here at the onX office. If I just want to learn more about this parcel of land that I'm sitting on, I can tap on it. It's going to pull up this card here. Gives me the ownership. In this case, it's an LLC, the tax address, the county, and the acreage. Usually that owner name is going to be, private citizen, whoever. It's going to say John Doe or Jim Smith or whomever. In this case, it's an LLC. It might say a limited family partnership or trust or something like that. And then that tax address is important because that is the address where the owner receives their taxes, their property taxes, where they get their mail. It's not always going to be the parcel address. So I remember talking to a customer one time who just pulled up like their Google Maps or their Apple Maps and plugged in the tax address trying to get to a parcel of land. But the tax address was different. It was a different address than the street address for that parcel. So something to keep in mind. Reason we include the tax address is because that is, well, part of it is because that's the data available to us, of course. But also, if you were going to try to contact somebody, write a letter for hunting permission, something like that, try to look up their name in the white pages or do a Google search to find a phone number, tax address is usually going to be your best bet to get in contact with that person. If I move my map out over to where there's some public land here, you'll see that our public lands data is color coded depending on what type of public land it is. And again, if you're not sure what the coloration means, the best thing to do is to tap on it. Tapped on this green parcel here, that tells me Lolo National Forest. All national forest land is going to be that green color. If I zoom out, this yellow here, that's going to be Bureau of Land Management. And the more you do this, the more intuitive it becomes. Blue land here is state. If I zoom up, this kind of tan brown, that's tribal lands. That's the Flathead Reservation. If I go all the way up here, national parks are purple. Military installations are going to be blue. We even have some city land in here. It's kind of this brighter green. This is University of Montana's brown. So again, if you're not sure what it is, tap on it. It'll tell you more information. And the more time you spend in the app, the more intuitive it's going to become. I'm going to go back into my layers, open up Montana, and I want to talk about that hunting districts layer. You'll notice that one's a little bit different. If you go lower left-hand corner, you'll see there's a number 17 below the on-off switch. What that means is we have 17 sublayers for my Montana hunting districts. Now, your state probably calls them something different. Everyone's got a different vernacular. Some states, it's deer permit areas or game management units or hunt areas, hunt zones. You get the idea. But it's important to double check that you have the right one turned on. So right now, if I click on view options, I'm just going to expand this. You can see I have deer and elk hunt district turned on. By default, in most states, it's going to be kind of the most commonly used districts are going to be turned on by default. In a lot of states, it's going to be the deer zones or deer permit areas. Some states where they kind of have GMUs and they're the same for all big game animals, that'll be turned on by default. But our deer and elk hunting in Montana's almost over. We've got a few seasons still going on, but by and large, folks are wrapped up. But it's still upland bird season. So I might want to turn that layer on to take a look at, the different zones, different districts we have here. I might turn on mountain lion units because we're getting into mountain lion chase season. Same thing with migratory birds, trapping districts. When we're applying for tags, make sure you have the right one turned on. Antelope is different than deer and elk. So double check that before you go hunt, before you're, looking at your applications. If you're in the West, make sure you have the correct one selected so that you're using the correct information. Last layer I want to talk about in my Montana folder here, and this is one that applies to not all states, but I think it's over half of all states in the union now have some form of a walk-in program. And so in Montana, our walk-in program, meaning this is access for public hunters to private lands. We call that block management. Kansas is walk-in hunter access. North Dakota calls it private land open to sportsmen or plots. Some states call it just walk-in areas, access, yes, different terms for it. They all act a little bit different, but the gist is these are private landowners that have enrolled in a program with the state that allows access for hunting, sometimes fishing as well, on their land. In exchange, they receive a stipend or a payment per opening up that access. So if I turn that one off, you can see the change on my map there. These locations are always shown with a black border with red dots inside. And again, this is an important layer to click on to get more information because we will link you. Let me back up. I went way too fast there. So I tapped on it. I scroll down to where it says Montana Block Management Areas. Now I'm going to click that orange link under BMA Property Info. And that's going to bring you to the PDF directly from the state Fish and Game website that shows you the exact boundaries, which are mirrored by what we have on the map. But it also tells you the different opportunities and different regulations for each unit. So some of these block management areas or some of these walk-in areas, they'll say, foot traffic only. Some will say driving a vehicle is okay on designated routes. Some won't be open every day of the week. They'll only be open certain days or maybe not the full season. Some will only allow deer hunting, but not migratory bird or different things. So it's important to check that before you go. Make sure you know the rules. These programs are phenomenal opportunities for folks to get outside, especially in states and areas where there's not a lot of public hunting land. If you don't own land or know somebody who does or haven't been able to knock on a door and get access, this is a way you can still get outside. So check that layer out. And then, of course, make sure you're abiding by the rules and regulations there. I'm gonna go back into my hunt map layers. Let's say I wanted to turn on an additional state. I've got an elite membership. I want to see a state other than Montana. This weekend, I'm going to be driving to Minnesota for Christmas. I'm probably going to do some pheasant hunting there. I want to turn on Minnesota. So if I just scroll down, I see all the other states listed in alphabetical order. I'm going to Minnesota. Tap the switch. Now Minnesota is turned on and is available to me, and I can turn those Minnesota layers on and off. So I can just turn all of those on if I would like. If I want to remove a state, the easiest way to do that is down below here. You see I have Minnesota and Montana highlighted with that green on-off switch. I just tap the Minnesota one. That turns it off. We recommend not having more than 5 states turned on at one time. It's just a lot of data and it can slow your machine down, slow your device down a little bit. And to be quite honest, I use onX more than most people. It's pretty rare that I need to see data for all 5 states at one time. It's pretty rare that I have more than 2 states turned on at one time. I pretty much always have Montana because I live here. And then, I hunt Minnesota and I might hunt one of the Dakotas. When I'm planning a trip and I'm on that trip, I'll turn that state on. When I'm back, I turn that state off. What about some of these other folders in here? So those other 5 folders below Montana, current conditions, land and access, roads, trails and rec, trees, crops and soil, wildlife layers. Those are all nationwide layers. And it's a bit confusing, admittedly, and I understand where the confusion comes from. So these are available to everybody with a paid membership. So even if you have a premium 1 state membership, you still have access to current conditions, for example, even though that shows data nationwide. So the active wildfire layer, for example, that's a popular one, not so much this time of year, but in the summer and early fall, when we're in wildfire season, that's when I like to have turned on. Now, I've often talked with customers, and again, I don't blame them for the confusion. I remember talking to a gentleman earlier this year who said, I'm in Colorado, I'm looking for wildfire data, but I don't see the fire layer in my Colorado layers. It's not going to be listed with your state layers because it's a nationwide data set. That's why all those other folders are separated out. Even though he only had a 1 state membership for Colorado, he still has access to this data nationwide. So you could see these fires in any state. If I zoom in, you see some of these fires that are currently burning. They've got a kind of a cartoon flame icon. And these are all prescribed burns that are going on right now. They're burning, some of the logging waste from logging cuts earlier this year. They're doing fuels reduction, things like that. But if I tap on a fire, it's going to give me more information. And the important part here are the onX last checked and the source updated. I want to draw your attention to that. So when there's a fire going on, things change hourly, daily. We will check the data source multiple times a day. I believe it's 4 times a day. We ping the data source that's reporting on these fires, and we will update it within the app. So here it'll tells us onX last checked today, December 17th. But the source hasn't updated since December 12th. On a prescribed burn like this, probably not that big of a deal. But if it's a true wildfire that's not contained, I can tell, hey, in 5 days, things have probably changed quite a bit. It's just that the Forest Service or the state agency or whomever hasn't been able to update with a new perimeter and with new information. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I'm not going to go into every layer within these folders here because we have a lot of them and we don't have time to cover everything. My recommendation, onX is a tool just like, a bow and arrow, a shotgun, a rifle, a muzzle loader is. You're not going to buy a bow and arrow the day of opener and go out and hunt with it that day. Well, some people might, but everyone knows we probably shouldn't. We should practice with it, right? Similar with onX, the more time you spend in it, the more time you use it, the more comfortable you're going to be. So spend some time poking around with these layers. You might look at some layers and say, that's cool. I'm never going to use that. That's fine. There's a lot of these layers that I don't use very often, but some of them, like cell coverage, can come in handy if you're planning a backcountry hunt or you're going to a buddy's deer lease and you want to know, hey, is there cell coverage there or not? You can turn that on and we'll give you the cell coverage map for the 3 major providers in the US. If I go into land and access, there's a few of these that I have turned on at all times. The wilderness areas should be turned on by default, and that's going to be your capital W federally designated wilderness. Like right here, it's this brighter green segment on this Forest Service land. I'm looking at the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex, the Great Bear Wilderness, the Bob Marshall and the Scapegoat. We got the Mission Mountain Wilderness, that's part on tribal land, part on Forest Service. So those are those, roadless areas. I also turn on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hunt areas. So if I zoom in on, if you look on the right side of my map here, this is a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service refuge south of Missoula here. And if I turn this layer off, you get a sense of the kind of information it gives me. A lot of refuges allow hunting and fishing, but they usually have some other regulations. They might have certain zones where you can hunt and certain zones where it's off limits. This one has right in the middle there's a big no hunting area. That's more of a wildlife viewing area. People go there. I go there all the time it's a good time to just look at ducks, which is fun. The southern part, there's a waterfowl zone. And then the rest of it is for archery whitetail hunting. It's the only kind of hunting that's allowed there. Again, I'm not going to do it here, but if you want to learn more information, especially with these refuges, they very often have different rules and regulations as far as season dates, days of the week where hunting's allowed. Click on this parcel. We'll link you to the Fish and Wildlife Service website so you can get, the information straight from the horse's mouth. They're the source of truth. They regulate everything there. Then the other three I have turned on here are Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever, and Ducks Unlimited. These are groups that we work with that do a lot of good boots on the ground conservation work, whether it's habitat improvements, conservation easements, acquiring lands, acquiring private lands and making them public. So that's a way just to highlight areas where they've done projects, where if you're a member of one of those organizations, you can kind of see where your money's going and what they're doing with it. So that's pretty slick as well. Last folder I'm going to go into is the roads, trails, and rec. And I'm just going to move up to Missoula here again. And again, I'm just going to back up. I know I'm going through this probably a little too fast, but I got my layers opened up here. Lower left-hand corner, hunt map layers. I'll show that one more time. Click on roads, trails, and rec. I'm going to turn all of these off. If I could be accurate with my finger, it would be helpful, Jack. So what I'm looking at right now is Mount Sentinel. It's right on the edge of Missoula. It's a pretty popular hiking spot for locals here. But I'm not able to see a whole lot of information. I can see a couple of roads there, but that's not telling the whole story. If I turn on trails, now I have those black and white lines that are showing me those trails. Okay, that's helpful. What if I want to see how steep these trails are? Turn on the trail slope. It's color coded. So green trail is going to be the flattest. Red trail is going to be the steepest, and you've got yellow and orange in between there. So you can use that if you want to plan a hike or plan how to get into a backcountry spot or into a hunting spot. Whether you want to hike in because it's really steep or maybe you don't. I can also turn on the mileages. And then this recreation sites is one I never turn off. It's not very intrusive. It doesn't block up my map very much, but it tells me where things like trailheads are, where license vendors are. It'll give me locations of fishing access sites. I think we even have some breweries in there for after the hunt. Just some like local, local landmarks and things like that. That's all included in the recreation sites. And then this motorized roads and trails is a very underutilized layer. So this is going to show me primarily on Forest Service land, but it's going to show me on my national forest and national grassland where those motorized roads and trails are. And in particular, these are the roads and trails that receive some maintenance, some annual maintenance. So if I turn it off, you see what my map looks like, turn it on, it's these purple and white roads. So if I click on one, again, that's how you learn more information about something is by tapping on it. Open up my menu. This one tells me this road name, the ID number, and then what I want you to focus on are the accessible by and the open dates. This one, accessible by, overland, high clearance 4x4, side-by-side ATV dirt bike. It's open to pretty much everything. Overland refers to like your passenger vehicle. So I've driven this road many times. I drive a pretty much standard GMC half-ton pickup. Overland, that's fine on this road. If you find a road that's a little bit more rugged and it says accessible by and it doesn't include overland but starts with high clearance 4x4, those are going to be a little bit rougher roads, a little bit more technical. Those are some of those roads I can take my stock truck down. I just know that from living here and having experience. Some of those roads I will not take my truck down because I might get stuck or worse. So the high clearance is referring to you've got some specialized equipment, you've got a lift kit on it, big wheels and tires. You've got the specialized Jeep or Tacoma or something like that. Then, of course, side by side ATV dirt bike, hopefully self explanatory. This is important to note because you might look at a road and think you're going to drive down it, but it has a width restriction. Some of these roads will have like a 50-inch width restriction, meaning only your smaller side by sides, your ATVs, and your dirt bikes. Similar with the open and close dates, check before you go. This road is open year round, but a lot of roads, especially in the Intermountain West, Montana in particular, they close down a lot of them seasonally. So they'll have a bunch of roads that might be closed this time of year. They'll close them after hunting season, and then they're closed through the winter and through the spring fawning and calving season. That's just to protect animals when they're at a vulnerable time. So I got caught my first year living in Montana. I was going to go bear hunting in the spring. I was going to drive out to an area I'd hunted in the fall, looked like good bear country, and there was a locked gate because I hadn't checked beforehand, and that gate doesn't open until I think that one's like May 16th, and it was late April, so I wasn't able to get in there. So check on those before you go. Make sure the road's open and legally accessible by your vehicle. Okay, like I said, there's a lot of layers in here. Don't have time to go through them all. Spend some time looking through these, turn them on, turn them off. I had a coworker one time who said, you can't really break this system. You can't, turn on all the buttons, try all the things, turn them on, turn them off. There's nothing you can do that can't be undone. That's really one of the best ways to learn this system and learn about all the different features. Besides, of course, attending this class, which I'm preaching to the choir. You folks are already here. Let's move on to offline maps. So what do you do if you're going to be in an area where you don't have good cell service? Well, you need to do a little bit of homework beforehand. In the lower left-hand corner again, below hunt map layers is my offline maps button. Should be the farthest lower left corner on your screen. I tapped the wrong one. There we are. So offline maps. You may or may not have some maps saved already. In here, I will see the maps I have saved, as well as the option to save a new map. So let's do that. I'm just going to zoom out. Oh, where do we want to go? Let's go here. Say this is the area I want to hunt. I don't know if there's going to be service or not, so I'm going to save an offline map. I'm going to tap the orange new offline map button. And then whatever is within this box on my screen, that's what's going to be saved for offline use. So I can still, if I zoom out, you can see that's as large of an area as I can save. If I keep zooming out, the box doesn't cover any more area. I'm just using one finger to move my map now to get it aligned just how I want it. So let's say I wanted to hunt the big snowies here. I want to make sure that's all included. Okay. You also have some options for the size and detail level of your map. So on the bottom there, I'm going to expand this just so you can see it better, where it says choose map detail. What the detail is referring to is the image resolution or the detail level in your satellite imagery. Medium's chosen by default. For most people, 99% of the time, I'm going to recommend medium or low. Medium or high. Medium is what I personally use when I'm hunting in the Western United States for big game, upland birds, waterfowl, because I might be covering a lot of country. I might be, for upland birds, I might drive 100 plus miles a day driving from different spots. So I want to have big coverage map. Same thing with big game hunting. I might hunt one area of a unit and there's no elk there, and I get in my truck at night and drive elsewhere. I like having that bigger map. If I'm hunting in the Midwest, I mentioned earlier, I'm from Minnesota. I go back to deer camp every year. I use the high detail. You can see how much smaller that map is. I recommend this for when you know you're going to be hunting an area and you're not likely to leave that area. So you got a deer camp, you got a deer lease, a duck club, you name it. You know you're going to be there. You're probably not going to be driving around a whole bunch to other parts of the state. Save that high detail map. If you might be moving around a bunch, scouting turkeys, looking for ducks, whatever, I like the medium detail. The imagery resolution's not that different. I've never been in the field and thought, man, if I had a little bit crisper resolution imagery, I would have gotten that buck or that bull. There are certainly times where it's helpful. By and large, the trade-off for me is worth it to have a little bit bigger coverage versus having, you know, the more detailed map. So we've got our map set. Next thing I recommend is naming your maps. So I'm going to name this one Big Snowies. The reason you do this is so that once you have 5, 10, 15, 100 maps saved, if they're all with that just generic timestamp name, you don't know where they are. You don't know, hey, do I have a map saved there or not? Name it whatever you want to name it. I typically will name mine after, in this case, a mountain range, a nearby town, or a hunting district. So if I have one where, this is hunting district XYZ and I can get the whole thing inside the map, I'll just name it District XYZ so that I know I have it. Otherwise, I might name it, Great Falls if it's around Great Falls, Montana or something like that. So it's downloading right now. You can see that down below there. And you'll notice that the box on my map has turned green now. If I zoom out, you'll see these green rectangles all over my map. Those are previously downloaded offline maps. That's how you can tell if you have one saved in an area or not. And you can save multiple maps close together. I do this all the time. Especially when I'm hunting a large area. Earlier this year, I had a pronghorn tag in eastern Montana. A lot of times pronghorn hunting involves a lot of windshield time and driving around to different areas to find animals. My tag was good for multiple units, so I just saved all of those units and stitched them together, or gridded them together, and made a grid pattern with my offline maps. That way I had coverage for the entire area that I was legally allowed to hunt on that permit. If I expand this, you see there's a few different looking maps in here. Some of them have a green check mark next to them. Some of them have an arrow pointing down. Green means go. If you have a green check mark, that means that map is downloaded and available for use. If it has an arrow pointing down, that means that map is not currently downloaded on that device. Here's an example of what that looks like on the map. You see this one in the middle of my screen here with kind of looks like a candy cane with the red and white striping. So that is a map that previously was downloaded on this device, but I removed. This one is my Livingston map. So how do I get in that situation? There's a couple of ways. Most commonly is getting a new phone. If you get a new phone, your onX membership transfers over, your waypoints transfer over. You don't lose any of that. The only thing you really lose is your downloaded maps because they're downloaded to the internal storage on your phone. And there's not a way currently to transfer that to your new phone. So when you get a new phone, log into onX with the same email and password you used on your old phone. Then go into your offline maps, and none of them will have that green check mark. They'll all look like my Livingston map. If I tap the down arrow, that's going to start downloading that map. So something to think of when you get a new phone. The other way you could get in this situation is if you intentionally offload a downloaded map. So let's take this Minnesota camp map that I have saved along the bottom here. If I tap on it, there's just a fake camp I set up for a demonstration for a different class. I've got an offline map saved there. This is something I do personally. Mentioned earlier, I go to Minnesota to deer hunt with family every firearm season. So I download a map for our deer camp right before the season in early November, do our hunting. Hopefully we're successful. This year I was. When I leave, I'm in Western Montana now. I don't really need an offline map for Northern Minnesota. So what I'll do is I'll tap on those three dots, and then I will tap remove from device. That will remove the downloaded map data for that area, but it keeps the border. So the nice thing is I'm freeing up space on my phone. If I'm running up against my memory or storage limit, I can offload some of those maps I'm not going to use. But then next year, when I go back to Minnesota, I don't have to go through the whole process like I showed earlier of hitting new map, getting the box set right. I can just hit that download arrow and it'll download it up for me. I'll use it for the week of deer hunting next year and then offload it again. A couple of these say update available. So what does that mean? Let's use this Little Belts map, for example. Little Belts, update available. That means that something has changed in the map data in that area. So most typically that's going to be property ownership data has changed. Parcel lines have changed or a property's been bought and sold and the owner has changed. Maybe there's some other data in there of hunting districts or trails or something. Something's been updated. To update this, all you have to do is tap that green circle, and that will start that download for you for that update. This is not something you have to do every single time there's an update available. You might see this every week or almost every day, depending on your state, that there's an update available. If you want to update it, certainly go ahead, but don't feel like you have to every time. My recommendation is do it before you're going to go to that area. Do it before, if you're going to go out hunting this weekend, do it tonight, tomorrow, Friday, and then you're good to go for the weekend. If you're driving out Saturday morning, you pull up your map and it says update available, don't worry about it. Go hunting. Most of the time, it's not going to make a huge difference unless you haven't updated it in years. Then there might be some big changes. But if you're updating every month, something like that, you're probably going to be pretty good. Don't let it stop you from hunting. I talked to a customer one time. He said, we were driving out and it said update available. So I had to pull over, find Wi-Fi at a coffee shop to be able to update my maps. It's still going to work. It's not like those updatable maps aren't going to work for you. The data's still there. It's just some piece has been updated. So don't let that prevent you or don't let that delay you on your hunt. Couple other tips for offline map usage. Of course, especially when it's cold like this time of year, one of the things we're most considerate of is our battery life. So here are my tips for extending your battery life. The number one thing you can do when you're offline or if you're in marginal service is to put your phone into airplane mode. That's going to cut off all cell signal to your phone. One of the biggest draws on your phone's battery is, well, the two biggest typically are if it's searching for signal and your screen being lit up. So use your phone, judiciously. Put it in your pocket when you're not using it. Turn that screen off. But the biggest thing you can do is turn off the cell network. Put it in airplane mode. That's going to extend your battery life better than just about anything else. If you're worried about getting texts or missing calls or something, you can certainly leave it on. Just know that's the trade-off. What I personally do, I'll put it into airplane mode when I'm hunting. If there's a break in the action or I'm stopping for lunch or something, I'll take it out of airplane mode, especially if I'm, on the top of a mountain or in an area where there might be service. Get my texts or see my phone calls, my notifications, and then do what I need to do, flip it back into airplane mode. Your location is still going to be visible when you're offline. Your phone's GPS works via its own GPS chip inside your device, so it connects with the satellites in space, similar to how a handheld GPS does. Doesn't find your location based on the cell network. So you can still mark waypoints. You can still track yourself. We'll demonstrate the tracker here in a little bit. You can still view your location. You can still see all of your layers. There's a few layers, I guess I should say, that aren't available offline. When you tap on them, they'll tell you they're not available offline. But your property boundaries and all that, of course, are available to you there. Okay, how are we doing here? I'm going to take a sip of water. Let's talk about our map tools. So I'm going to move the map back to my location. Let's talk about waypoints. So along the bottom of my screen, the middle icon says tools. I'm going to tap on that. And there's a few tools in here we're not going to be able to go over. Again, I recommend tap on all the buttons in here when you have time. What I want to focus on today are waypoints. That's the most utilized tool most people are going to use. Couple ways to mark a waypoint on the map. One is just by tapping the button that says Add Waypoint. That's going to place a waypoint in the center of my map. From there, I can hit Save. Look, I've got a waypoint. But what if that's not where I want my waypoint to be? Let me just move to a different area so my map's clear. I go back into Tools, go to Add Waypoint. Again, it's right in the middle of my map. That might not be where I want it. Well, I can change it. I recommend zooming in. The more zoomed in you are, the more exact you can be. And then I'm just tapping on the map with my finger, and the waypoint's following anywhere I tap. So maybe I want to focus on, I want to get just to the peak of this hill here. Zoom in, tap it, great. From there, I can save. But you might start to notice a problem if that's all you're ever doing with waypoints. After a while, you get a whole lot of red X's on your map. And what do those mean? What did I mark there? 6 months from now, I might not remember why I marked this spot. So I recommend editing and customizing your waypoints. To do that, I've got an existing waypoint here. I can tap on it. It gives me the name, which basically means nothing to me 6 months from now. I just know when I marked it. I'm going to tap the edit button in the lower left-hand corner. From there, just like offline maps, name your waypoints. It's even more crucial than naming your offline maps. So maybe this is a spot where I want to get up to and glass from. So I'm going to name it glassing. Then I'm going to choose a different icon. We've got dozens of different waypoint icons in here. We have a glassing one. That's one I use all the time. So I'm going to mark that. There's also tree stand, scrape, turkey hen, Sasquatch, rabbit, chucker, all kinds of different stuff in there. So I'm going to use the glassing area one. Then I'm going to select a color. That's kind of the pro move, is to color code your waypoints and have each color mean something. Few different ways to do this. Well, there's a lot of different ways to do this. A few examples. What I personally do is I do it by species. So all of my deer spots are one color. All of my turkey spots are another color. All of my elk spots, my pronghorn, my waterfowl, you get it. That way I can tell when I'm zoomed out, without ever looking at the name or the icon, I at least know those are elk hunting spots. Those are upland bird spots. Those are deer spots. That's one way to do it. So I might make this one, I haven't been there yet. So do I know if it's good or not? I might make it red. That's what I use for, red is my indicator for you haven't been here, you e-scouted it, go verify it. So if it's red, say this is a spot I want to glass for bears. If I go there and it's good, I might make it blue, which is my bear color. If it's bad, I might just delete it, or I might make it black and write bad glassing. Don't go here again. Save yourself the trip. But right now I'm going to leave it red and I'm going to hit save. Now this tells me something. This is better than having, especially as you get more into the system, into the onX Hunt app, you've got 1,000 waypoints and they're all orange X's. That's useless, right? It's all about being efficient. So help your future self out, put in the work now so that in the future you don't have to try to remember, oh, what did I mark there? What was that for? Another way to mark a waypoint, and this is what I do more often, is just via a long press. So let's say the head of this creek here, I want to mark. I'm just going to touch it with my finger and leave it there for 2 seconds. That put a waypoint there. I didn't have to go into my tools. It's a little bit quicker. And then, of course, from this screen, I can give it a name. I can do all of the customization that I just did. If I don't want it, I just swipe that menu down and it disappears. So again, a long hold. And if it's an accidental one, I do it sometimes, where you just leave your finger on the map a little too long. You can hit cancel in the upper left-hand corner, or just swipe that menu down and that will remove that waypoint for you. What if I want to mark where I'm currently standing? I'm going to go into my tools again, center icon, and I'm going to tap the button that says mark my location. This is what I use in the field 9 times out of 10 because I want to mark where my boots are. My method of operations, a lot of times when I'm hunting a new area or order of operations, I get out, maybe I get the collar on the dog, grab the shotgun, my bird vest. We're going to take off. I hit mark my location, and then I will customize this, put the truck icon on there, name it truck or parking, and save it. That way I know where my truck's parked. When I'm setting a deer stand or duck blind, same thing. If I'm scouting an area and I see an elk wallow, a buck rub, turkey scratching, same thing. So this is how you can do that quickly and easily in the field. It's going to default again to that red X. If you're in the heat of a hunt and you're going after a goblin turkey or a bugling elk, maybe don't worry about customization right there. Do what you need to do, but then go back afterwards and mark, hey, this was where I found some elk scat, or this is where I saw a rub or something like that. I'm just going to delete this right now. So, well, I should demonstrate how to do that. That's a good idea, Jack. If you want to delete a waypoint, tap on it. You can hit edit and then delete, or if you scroll over, the farthest right icon says delete. It'll ask you to confirm, and then you can delete that waypoint. And again, if I was offline, I can still mark waypoints. When I return to service, it'll sync up and it'll be saved to your account. So no worries there. You can also share waypoints with a friend. So I just tapped on this one. Let's say this is where I want to meet a buddy on Saturday morning. Like, hey, let's meet up here to go hunting. Hit the share button right next to edit. Hit share with link. And then that will allow me to select whether I want to email it. Text message is the most common. You can just copy the link and paste it into an Instagram message or Facebook or something like that. Say I want to text this to my brother, and I'll send it to him and say, hey, let's meet up here Saturday. He'll get a text message that says Jack would like to share a waypoint with you. If he accepts it, it'll open up his map and it will place that waypoint on his map in the same spot where I had it on mine. The nice thing there is that those waypoints are read only, meaning he can't then make changes to it. He can't change anything on my side. He can't also send it to a bunch of his buddies. So it's a little bit of protection there. The only thing he could do is keep it or delete it. So your data is safe. It's yours. That's a question we get sometimes is, hey, can other people see my waypoints and see my data? Can onX see where I marked my waypoints? No, nobody can see that information except you and the people you choose to share it with. So that is secure data. So you shouldn't have any concerns about, oh man, I don't want to mark this spot because other people are going to find it from my waypoint and know where my honey hole is. It's not a possibility. Nobody's able to see that. All right, let me take a look at my outline here. Let's talk about the tracker. So I'm going to zoom in on my location here. Now the tracker is on the lower right-hand corner. Folks, I see a lot of questions coming in the chat. Remember, we can't answer questions in the chat. Please use the Q&A. I mentioned that at the top. Some people might have came in late and didn't see that. Use the Q&A box. We're just not able to really answer questions in any sort of organized way in the chat. So please, please, please drop them in the Q&A box, not in the chat. All right, tracker. Down to my toolbar along the bottom of my screen, farthest right, it says tracker. I'm going to tap on that and I'm going to hit start. Now you'll see my blue location dot has turned red and my timer has started. If I were moving instead of sitting in an office building, you would see my dot moving across the map and there would be a light blue dashed line following along behind me. It will show everywhere that I've walked like a breadcrumb trail. Again, this is after I park the truck and hit mark my location and make that waypoint a truck icon, I start my tracker and start walking. So this is another kind of safety feature. It's nice to have these tracks so that you can easily find your way back in the dark. Once a track is saved, you can also share it with somebody else. So I used this a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, this past fall, I didn't get an elk, but 2 years ago I did. And texted a buddy, said, "Hey, got a bull down. Think you can come help? You live nearby?" He said, "Yeah, send me the coordinates or send me the waypoint." So I had a waypoint of where my truck was. I had the track from my walk into that area where I killed the bull, and then I had a waypoint of where the bull was, where I had the meat. Sent all those to him. He was able to park right where I was parked. He followed my exact trail in, and then, of course, had the waypoint to know exactly where he was headed to. Another awesome use for this is if you're setting duck blinds or deer stands, you can mark your entry and exit routes, especially if they're different. A lot of times they'll be the same, but maybe not. And that way, when you're walking in the dark, you've got a bit of a track there that you can follow. Also, sharing these is super nice. If you have somebody new in camp and you're saying, "Hey, you're going to go sit in the hilltop blind," but they've never been to the hilltop blind before, you can share that waypoint with them and share the track so that they don't accidentally walk right through a deer bedding area, or they don't accidentally, they're not stumbling around making noise in the pre-dawn darkness. That's a pretty neat feature to be able to have. I'm going to hit stop here. I didn't go anywhere, so it doesn't let me save because there's no track to save. If there was, I'd be able to save it. You can rename it. You can change the color of your tracks as well. So I color code mine just like I do waypoints. Sometimes I'll change the look of the track. I can make it a solid line instead of a dashed line. I can make it thicker or thinner. But I'm just going to remove this for now. Actually, let me hit stop and delete. There's not really anything to delete, but there we are. And again, tracker works when you're offline. So you can use that when you don't have service. Again, recommend putting it in airplane mode. Let's talk about the location button. There's some hidden features in here that aren't talked about enough. So I've been using this a little bit today. If I'm looking at the map and I don't see my blue location dot and I want to get back to my location real quick, in the lower right-hand corner of my map, there's a button that looks like a crosshair. If I tap on that, it's going to bring the map back to my location. If I tap it one more time, now my map is going to rotate so that instead of north being oriented up, whatever direction I'm facing is oriented up. So if I pick up my iPad here and I'm just spinning it around, you can see my map rotates with me. So this is real nice if I'm hiking along and I want to be able to easily know what's in front of me, what's to the right, what's to the left. Do I need to take the left fork or the right fork? Instead of doing that like mental math of, well, I'm headed southwest and this is north, so I need to go. You just pull this up and point at the direction you want to go. Again, I got there by tapping on my location dot twice. So if I'm not looking at my location, tap the location, tap it again. I've got that blue sight cone on my map, and my map rotates with me. You'll notice, if you're a keen-eyed observer, in the lower right-hand corner, I have a new icon that shows up when I'm in this heads-up mode. Looks kind of like a compass. If I tap on that compass, again, lower right-hand corner, tap on that compass icon, now I go into our compass mode. And this feature is a couple years old now, but it's one of my absolute favorite features we've introduced recently. So now I have a compass heading at the top of my map. And I apologize, it is a little bit tough to see with the streets here in town. Unfortunately, there's not great Wi-Fi out on the National Forest, so I have to do the class from the office here. So it's a little tough to see with the background satellite imagery. Along the left-hand side of my screen, you'll notice there are yardage markers. Those correspond with some of the major hash marks on the line that's emanating from my location dot. As I zoom in, you see those yardage marks change. And the real power of this tool is when I go into our rangefinder mode. So again, lower right-hand corner, now I got 4 black icons there. The topmost one looks like a handheld rangefinder. I'm going to tap on that. Now the lower half of my line is red, and I've got a waypoint symbol to the left here. This feature allows me to drop a remote waypoint with a high level of precision. So I use this example. I've used this feature recently. I shot a mule deer buck in eastern Montana this year. It was about 350 yards away. So after the shot, I had it, he was rubbing some brush, raking some scrub brush with his antlers, trying to impress a doe. After the shot, I focused on that spot. He disappeared out of sight right at the shot. I pointed my phone at that brush. I ranged it with my rangefinder. It was 350 yards. Actually, it was 354. Point my phone at that spot, and then I can move this icon. I'm just using my finger here and sliding it up and down on my screen. So that's how I'm moving this line, is just by sliding my finger. Slide it up to 354 yards. Hit that orange box. Now I have a waypoint on that exact spot. So that was super handy to be able to get up there and start blood trailing. I've used this in the West for 354-yard shots, which is the longest shot I've ever taken on an animal. I've used this in the Midwest, in super thick aspen regrowth country in northern Minnesota. But if you've deer hunted in thick country a lot, whether you're in the Southeast, Northeast, Midwest, wherever, you know that when you climb down from your tree stand or from your shooting house or your blind, you get down on the ground, things look different. Even out west here, you start walking, things start to look a little bit different. It's nice to have that waypoint, even if it's only, like I said, in northern Minnesota, if we get a shot that's more than 75 yards, that's a long shot in the woods. Shot a buck at 60 yards this year. Now I happened to watch it fall over, my Minnesota buck, but if I didn't, I would have ranged the spot, marked a waypoint so that I had a spot to start blood trailing. I love this feature. It's not one you're going to use on every hunt, but it sure comes in handy for kind of that post shot in the recovery to start blood trailing. People also use it to plan stalks. Maybe it's archery season and I see a bull elk 500 yards away, way too far. But I'm going to have to drop out of sight and maybe I need to get loop around and make a big loop to get the wind right. I can at least range it. All right, 500 yards. Place a waypoint where that elk is so that I at least have a landmark to shoot for. A lot of turkey hunters use this in the spring as well to try to pinpoint where a bird is gobbling and to kind of have a landmark to shoot there and to kind of know when they're getting close. So that's something to check out. When I want to close out of this, lower right-hand corner, just hit the exit button and I'm back to my normal map view. Okay. I'm going to switch over to my computer now. So I'm going to stop sharing on my tablet and I'm going to pull up the onX web map on my computer. Now the web map comes free with your account. It's not an add-on or anything like that. And I think this is an underutilized feature of the app. I love the web map for e-scouting, for planning out my hunts. It's the same map that I have on my phone, just in a bigger format. And you'll notice my waypoints that I just marked are showing up here. So what you mark on your phone or tablet transfers to the web map and vice versa. Any markups I make on here transfer over to my phone or tablet. If you've never accessed the web map before, you just go to onxmaps.com. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, there's a button that says Open Map. You'll select Hunt Map. It'll ask for your login information. Same as your phone, same email and password, and that'll get you logged in there. All right. I pulled up the web map because I wanted to highlight some of our base map options. Now you can still access all these features on the phone. So if you're following along on your phone, we're going to the lower right-hand corner of the map. And I'm just going to move my map. Where should we go? Let's go to the Bitterroots here, a clean area. So in the lower right-hand corner, my button says HYB2D. Yours might say SAT or Topo. That's just referring to what base map is currently turned on. So right now, I'm going to turn on my satellite base map. So as I zoom in and out, you'll see this is a pretty standard satellite map. It's showing me, the areas of rock and vegetation here in the Bitterroots. As I move around, you can see, looks like a pretty basic map. I personally don't use the satellite map very often. What I use is the hybrid map because the hybrid map shows me the topographic lines overlaid on top of the satellite imagery. So I get the elevation contours and the contour changes as well as the imagery. The other thing that the hybrid and topo maps, and I'll show the topo map in a minute, the other thing that they highlight are waterways. These blue lines here, those are not shown on the satellite map. But on hybrid and topo, I can see those blue lines a lot better. Now, these are going to be your streams, and it's important to note we have different symbology. Here's a good example. This creek here has a solid blue line. That means it's a more permanent stream. There's water in it year round most of the time. Maybe in a case of extreme drought, it might run dry. This one over here has a dashed line. If I zoom in, you can see that a little bit better. That's an ephemeral or seasonal stream, meaning there might not be water in this in late summer unless it's been after an especially wet period. We had a big rain event. These are going to be streams that run during like spring runoff when the snow melts. And, in the Bitterroots here, depending on elevation and sun exposure, snow can last all year in some areas. So some of these streams might run a long time. But if you're new to an area and you're going to need water, whether it's for yourself because you're backpack hunting and you're spiking out miles in, or you're a bird hunter and you're going to need water for your dog, unless you have local knowledge of an area, don't count on these having water. These, yeah, you're more likely to have water. Certainly, Kootenai Creek, if it's a named creek and it's in the bottom of a major drainage like this with all these other ones feeding into it, that's going to have water in it, right? Some of these smaller ones, they might, which would be a great bonus. But again, unless you have kind of good knowledge of the area, local knowledge, don't bank on it. Have a plan B if you're planning to get water from some of these areas. We're looking at the topo map now, and some people love the topo map. Depends where you are. When I'm hunting Minnesota back home, flat, 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 I don't use it very much because it doesn't tell me a whole lot. It will show me the waterways, and in a swampy area like northern Minnesota, it will highlight those marshy areas a lot better. So there is some use for it. However, when I turn on the LiDAR, that's when I start using it in flat areas and certainly in mountainous areas like this. If I zoom in here, this is our new LiDAR feature. If I turn it off, turn it on, you can see quite the difference here. Now, this is an elite only feature, so that's one of the benefits of going to that elite membership. But man, I can see these more rugged areas, these kind of boulder field, rock pile type of stuff that doesn't really show on the regular topo map. And if I zoom out, I'll show you what a flatter area looks like. Now, if we zoom in northern Minnesota here, pretty flat, right? But I can still see, like if I zoom in on this area here, there's a little bit of a ridge here. Let's see if I can find a better, there's a little bit of some topography here that doesn't really show super well. I can tell because of these lines, there's a little bit of an elevation change here, but when I turn on LiDAR, I get a better sense of what I'm looking at. So this is helpful in those flat areas, especially to help you, because a couple foot difference, that could be a deer travel corridor where they want to walk, where it's a little bit lower if they're a little more well hidden. People have used these along waterways, upland bird hunters see, oh, there's a little bit of a cut there, a little bit of a ledge. Maybe pheasants are hanging out in there. I love hunting, creek bottoms for pheasants out here in Montana. So take a look at that. Again, that's an elite only feature there with the LiDAR. So I'm going to flip back to my satellite imagery. And I want to talk about two of our imagery options down here. You see leaf off imagery and recent imagery. So I'm going to move over to Wisconsin. I think this will be a pretty good area to demonstrate this. So my leaf off imagery is imagery that's taken in the fall or winter time. We don't currently have this for every state. You'll notice it says not available in all areas. So if you're looking at your state, you turn this on and you don't see any difference, or what'll actually happen is there'll be a filter that obscures it. We have, I think, 15 states right now. We're looking to add more. It's just not every state has good quality imagery that's available to us. So all of the states we currently have are east of the Rockies, where there's higher prevalence of deciduous forest. So this is Wisconsin, and it's nice because I can quickly tell these are evergreen trees. These are not. It's a little bit tougher to tell with our regular imagery, right? But when I turn that on, it's pretty clear. So man, this edge, deer hunters love talking about edges, right? There's not a lot of topography here that's going to funnel deer. Like we out in the West in Montana, I'm concerned more with the role of the land than I am the vegetation very often. Flatter areas, this is what might funnel deer. They might have travel routes in this habitat diversity here. They love diversity, right? So I can easily pinpoint those. Even I can see some of the trails in here. These look like they might be ATV trails or walking trails, but I can see them a lot easier in that leaf off area. Like I said, we don't have it everywhere. We're looking to add more states. If I go over to Minnesota, we don't have leaf off imagery. You're going to get that message that says no leaf off imagery available. In some states like Iowa, we have some counties, but not others. Same with Missouri, I think, is a partial. We have most of the state, but not all of them. So, and again, the leaf off imagery is an elite only feature. So you do have to have that elite membership. Let's take a look at our recent imagery. So I'm going to go into the Wind Rivers here in Wyoming because they usually have some snow. So this is our regular satellite imagery. When I turn on the recent imagery, you see the view changes. So recent imagery is taken by a satellite and it's updated every 2 weeks. These dates here tell me the image, we don't have the exact date the image was taken, unfortunately, but it was sometime between November 24th and December 8th. If I zoom in, you'll notice it gets a little fuzzy. This is not meant to be a replacement for your regular imagery. Life's about trade-offs, right? So the trade-off here is you get more up-to-date imagery, but since it's taken via a satellite versus airplane flyover, the resolution is a little bit less. But what's cool is I can go back in time. So if I go back one image, you can see how much the snow changes. From the most recent image, go back, 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 all the way back to the summer, very little snow. If I want to jump to a certain date, I can go all the way back to March of 2023 when we released this feature. So I might say, oh, maybe I want to bear hunt in here in the spring. I don't know if this area of Wyoming allows spring bear hunting. I know some parts of the state do. So what's it going to look like? May, June 2024? I'm probably not bear hunting there. That's a lot of snow. What was the year before like? Is that typical? Yeah, it looks pretty typical, right? So this is a feature I often use, like I said, in the spring. I spring bear hunt a lot. A lot of times it's just waiting for snow to melt so you can get into an area. You can check snow levels in an area. This time of year, we have our onX fish app, but a lot of people will use this to check, hey, what's the ice looking like on a lake? Waterfowl hunters use it to check water levels, especially in areas where it fluctuates a lot. Upland bird hunters, a lot of pheasant hunters will use this earlier in the season, in October primarily, to check, hey, what are the crops doing? Is the corn out? Are the sunflowers out? Because if they're not, that makes for tougher pheasant hunting. Again, this is an elite only feature, so you do have to have that elite membership to access that recent imagery. So that's one of the benefits of upgrading there. Last thing I want to talk about before we get to Q&A is the search feature. So I'm just going to move the map back to my location. I'm going to clear this out. So one of the questions we get is, can I mark a waypoint from a set of coordinates? Maybe you've got a set of coordinates from a guidebook or from an old GPS unit, and you want to be able to mark that spot on your map in onX. Here's how you do it. You're going to go into the search. It's in the upper left-hand corner of my map. On a mobile device, this is in the upper right-hand corner, and it looks like a magnifying glass. It's kind of hard to see. It'll typically be right below, like at least on an iPhone, right below where your battery indicator is. It looks like a magnifying glass. If you tap on that, it will open up the search for you. You can choose between location or private land. If you're searching for GPS coordinates, you want location selected. And we recommend using decimal format, not degrees, minutes, seconds, or UTM. So decimal, I'm just going to type in a random. You can go up to 5 decimal points. The more exact you are, the better your result's going to be. You don't need a comma between your coordinates, but your second coordinate, your longitude, needs to have a minus sign in front of it. That's because we're in the Western Hemisphere. If you don't put the minus sign, it's going to put you in the Eastern Hemisphere in, you know, Europe or Asia or Africa or something. If you're looking for that area, great. Assuming most of the people in this seminar are in the United States and Canada, you're going to want to have the minus there. So I'm just going to type in, that should put us somewhere in the Great Plains. Here's my result. I'm going to click on it, and that moves me to that location. There's my coordinates. If I want to mark a waypoint, I hit add waypoint. Now I have marked a waypoint from a set of coordinates. Where did that put me? In Wyoming. Look at that. So that's how you search for coordinates. You can also just copy and paste them. That works as well. Other things you can search for towns. You can search for mountain peaks, national parks, lakes, rivers. Like, let's say I wanted to search for, oh, I don't know, Cleveland, Ohio. Let's see, city of Cleveland. Brings me to Cleveland on the lake there. Awesome. If I want to search for a person, some private land, let me just move the map back to Montana. Instead of having location selected, I'm going to select private land. Clear this out. And then I'm just going to search for John Smith, just kind of a generic name. It's going to give me, let's hit John Smith. It's going to give me a whole bunch of results. There's a lot of John Smiths, as you might imagine. You'll notice all of these are in Western Montana. Missoula County, Ravalli County, Mineral County. That's because the app prioritizes search results based on where the map is looking. I'm looking at Missoula, Montana, western part of the state. It's going to give me John Smith's in Western Montana. If I was looking for John Smith in Vermont, I'd want to move my map to Vermont. And if I knew John Smith lived in northern Vermont, I'd want to zoom in on northern Vermont. Give as much information as you can. The better the inputs, the better the outputs. So if you put good data in, the better data you're going to get out. Now, I don't know which one of these John Smiths I'm looking for. So I'm going to click the first one. It's going to zoom in. That doesn't look like the right one. Exit, go to the next one. That's how you can flip between different search results here. Okay, now obviously these are all in town. You can also go into our filters up here. And if I know John Smith owns 150 acres, or it's more than 150 acres, I can say only show me parcels bigger than 150 acres. Hit apply. Might need to zoom out. Hit search this area. Let's zoom in a little bit closer, get better results. Now it's giving me parcels that are over 150 acres. If I know John's middle name, that's going to help. If I go John R. Smith, then that gives me some better options here. Okay, so if you know John's spouse, you can put that in there. That's all I have for you right now. Hope I answered some questions there, but I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to my slideshow and then we'll get to some Q&A here. So if you're not currently an onX member, we have a discount for you. You can use the promo code app101. That's good for 30% off your first year's membership. So if you missed out on the Black Friday sale, we still have a discount for you. The promo code has to be used on our website. So it has to be used at onxmaps.com. Promo codes do not work in the Apple or Google Play Store. They do not take promo codes. It has to be used on our website to save you that money. If you have any trouble with it, contact our customer support team. I should have mentioned them, off the start. If you ever have any questions that come up, best way to reach us is via email. Help@onxmaps.com is our email address. I'll give it to you one more time. It's help, HELP, at onxmaps.com. If you have any trouble using that promo code or you have any other questions, shoot us an email. We'll get you taken care of. Our website's another great place for information. We have all kinds of frequently asked questions and tutorials on there. Our YouTube channel, we have slowed down on it a bit, but there are some demos on there. All of our old master classes are on there. And then, of course, I mentioned our customer support team. Shoot them an email. Our goal is to answer every email within 24 business hours. So if you email us tonight, you can expect to get a response tomorrow. Interested in future classes, we're going to take a break over Christmas and New Year's here. We'll be back at it. We've actually got one class tomorrow is on waterfowl calling with Bo Brooks. So you can check that one out. And then after the first of the year, we're going to really get rolling on our application season classes. So we partner with our friends at the Hunt and Fool. They're going to be breaking down Wyoming and Arizona elk draws in mid-January. We're going to teach you how to use our hunt research tools. So if you're interested in learning more about that, check that class out. And then just about every month, we do another 101. So if you want to hear the same information just because you like the sound of my voice, I don't know why that would be the case, but you can certainly sign up for another 101. All right, let me see if we have any questions that Bryce, our customer support agent, has passed along to me. Anything I didn't cover? Here's a good question. How do you know if an area is open to the public for hunting? So that's a good question. That's not something we're always going to be able to show you on the map. Every state is different. Every state has their own regulations. The source of truth on, hey, can I go hunting here? That's going to be your state fish and game agency 9 times out of 10. By and large, there's no absolutes. There are places of BLM land, Forest Service land, state land, county land where you can't hunt. Most of those lands are open to hunting, though, as far as, public lands. A lot of times your wildlife management areas, waterfowl production areas, state forest, national forest, county forest, more often than not, those areas are going to be open to hunting. However, don't listen to Jack and say, when the game wardens talk to you, say, well, the guy at onX said that I could hunt here. It's on you to make sure it's legal to hunt there, make sure there's no weapons restrictions. For example, there's a lot of land around Missoula here that's open to hunting, but archery only, because they don't want firearms going off, close to where people are recreating or close to homes and stuff. So if you ever have a question, that's why your local game wardens, state fish and game office, that's why they're there. Let them know, hey, I'm thinking of hunting this area. Is this okay? They'll be able to tell you yes or no. Someone asked to go over the road clearance access type again. Let me pull my map up and I'll show you how I got that. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you have this layer turned on. So in my hunt map layers, roads, trails, and rec, make sure you have the motorized roads and trails turned on. If you have it turned off, you won't see these. So roads, trails, and rec, turn that on. If I click on a road, that will tell me the name of the road, the width restrictions, and the open and close dates. But you got to have this layer turned on, motorized roads and trails. All right. Looks like that's about all the questions. I want to thank everybody again for joining us tonight. Means a lot that you're spending your evening with us. Again, if you have any questions, let us know. Shoot us an email, help@onxmaps.com. Hope everybody has a safe and happy Christmas season and a happy new year. Hope to see you all on a future class in 2026. And with that, I'll just say good night.